Steve Harvey was born on the 17th of January 1957 in a small town called Welch, in the state of West Virginia, USA. Welch was not a big or famous city. It was a quiet town where many people worked in coal mines. Life in Welch was not easy. Most families did not have a lot of money, but families were close and people helped each other. Steve's full name is Broderick Stephen Harvey. He was named after a TV character, but everyone called him Steve. Steve lived with his parents and siblings in a small house. His father, Jesse Harvey, worked as a coal miner. This was a very hard job. Every day, his father went deep into the ground to dig for coal. It was dangerous and dirty work, but Jesse Harvey worked hard to take care of his family. He was also a kind and wise man. He taught Steve many lessons about life. Steve's mother, Eloise Harvey, was a very religious woman. She worked as a Sunday school teacher. She loved her children and always told them to trust in God. She wanted them to be honest, kind, and strong. She often said, "God has a plan for you." Steve grew up with many brothers and sisters. Their house was not big, and sometimes they didn't have much food, but they had love. Steve remembers how his mother cooked simple meals and made sure everyone had something to eat. They shared everything. As a child, Steve was funny. He loved to make people laugh. He enjoyed telling jokes, doing funny voices, and pretending to be on TV. But even though he liked to laugh, life was sometimes very hard for him. He had a big dream. He wanted to be on television one day. But no one around him believed it was possible. In Welch, most people didn't become TV stars. They worked in mines or factories. But young Steve was different. He believed in something bigger. Steve had one big problem. When he was young, he stuttered. Stuttering means a person repeats sounds or has trouble saying words. Steve's stutter was very bad. Sometimes it took him a long time to say just one sentence. Other kids laughed at him. They made fun of how he talked. It was hard for Steve. He wanted to speak clearly. He wanted to tell jokes. But when he opened his mouth, the words didn't come out right. At school, he was often quiet. He didn't want to be laughed at. But inside, he was full of ideas, stories, and jokes. One day, when Steve was in 6th grade, his teacher gave the class an assignment. Write down what you want to be when you grow up, she said. Steve thought about it. He smiled and wrote, "I want to be on television. Later, the teacher read his answer. She laughed. Steve, you'll never be on TV, she said. You can't even talk right. The whole class laughed. Steve felt hurt, but he didn't get angry. He went home and told his father what happened. His father looked at him and said, "Don't let anyone steal your dream. Steve never forgot those words. From that day, he kept the dream alive in his heart. He believed that one day, no matter how long it took, he would speak clearly and he would be on television. To help him with his stuttering, Steve listened to the radio. He paid close attention to how the radio hosts spoke. He practiced speaking every day. Sometimes He would put a pencil in his mouth and try to talk. This helped him slow down his words. Slowly, his speech got better. It took years, but he never gave up. Even with his stutter, Steve was funny. He made his family laugh. He told funny stories at the dinner table. He was learning something very important: how to make people laugh with words. As Steve grew older, he still dreamed of being on TV, but life was not easy. After high school, he went to college but didn't stay long. He needed money, so he started working. Over the next several years, Steve had many jobs. He worked as a mailman, delivering letters to houses. A carpet cleaner, washing dirty carpets in people's homes. A boxer, fighting in small matches to win money. A salesman, selling things door-dash to dash door. A construction worker, lifting heavy things and building houses. Some jobs were hard, some were boring, some didn't pay much. But Steve kept going. He never complained. He did what he had to do to survive. But none of those jobs felt right. Deep inside, he felt like he was meant for something more. He didn't know how to get there, but he knew he was supposed to make people laugh. One day, a friend told him about a comedy club. It was a place where people told jokes on stage. Steve had never been to one before. But when he went, he felt something change inside him. He thought, I can do that. I can make people laugh like that. That night, Steve decided to try. He signed up for an open mic night at a time when new comedians could perform. He was nervous, but he wrote down some jokes and practiced them in front of a mirror. When the night came, Steve stood on stage for the first time. The lights were bright. The crowd was quiet. His heart was beating fast. Then he started to talk. People began to laugh. They laughed at every joke. They clapped. They cheered. Steve had never felt so alive. That night changed his life. He knew he had found his true purpose. He didn't know how long it would take, but he promised himself, I will become a comedian. Steve Harvey never forgot the feeling of his first time on stage. It was in 1985. He had just turned 28. He had written his own jokes and practiced them many times in front of the mirror. But when the day came, he was still very nervous. The comedy club was small, but the lights were bright. The room was full of people who came to laugh. Some of them were drinking and talking. Steve stood behind the curtain, shaking a little. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, You can do this. This is your moment. Finally, the announcer called his name. Please welcome Steve Harvey. Steve walked onto the stage. The spotlight hit his face. For a second, he forgot everything. His mind went blank. He looked at the crowd and froze. But then, he remembered his first joke. He smiled and said it. The crowd laughed. That first laugh gave him energy. He kept going. One joke after another. People clapped. Some were laughing so hard. They were crying. Steve had never felt this before. It was magic. He wasn't just telling jokes, he was connecting with people. He was making them feel better. That night, he learned something important. He was born to make people laugh. After the show, people came up to him and said, "You were great." Someone even said, "You're going to be famous one day. That night, Steve drove home with a big smile. He knew this was just the beginning. Steve started doing more shows. He drove from city to city to perform at small clubs. Some nights, he was funny. Other nights, he wasn't. But he never stopped trying. However, life on the road was not easy. Comedy didn't pay much at the beginning. Sometimes Steve didn't have enough money for a hotel or food. Slowly, he ran out of money. He lost his home. He couldn't afford rent. So Steve lived in his car. For 3 years. Steve was homeless. He slept in his 1976 Ford Tempo. He parked behind gas stations or outside comedy clubs. He took showers in public bathrooms. He ate cheap food or sometimes didn't eat at all. He kept his clothes in the back seat. He would change in gas station restrooms. He didn't tell many people he was homeless. He didn't want pity. He was chasing his dream, and that dream came with sacrifice. Some nights were very cold. Some nights he cried. He missed his children. He missed sleeping in a bed. But still, he said to himself, "Don't give up. God has a plan for you. During this time, Steve prayed a lot. He asked God for strength and direction. He kept working hard. Every time someone gave him a chance to perform, he gave it everything he had. One day, Steve got a phone call. It was a comedy show in New York City. They wanted him to perform. But Steve had only $35 in his pocket. A bus ticket to New York cost more than that. He thought about giving up. But then he remembered something his mom used to say, "If God brings you to it, He will bring you through it." Steve found a way to borrow money. He made it to the show. That night, he gave his best performance ever. Someone in the audience worked for Showtime at the Apollo, a famous TV show. They saw Steve's talent and offered him a chance to host the show. Steve had waited so long for this moment. He had been hungry, cold, and alone. But now, his hard work was finally paying off. In 1993, Steve Harvey became the host of Showtime at the Apollo. This was a huge opportunity. The Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York, was famous. Many great stars had started their careers there. As the host, Steve had to be funny, quick, and charming. He also had to deal with tough crowds. Sometimes, the audience would boo if they didn't like a performer. Steve had to keep the show fun, even when things went wrong. But Steve was perfect for the job. He made people laugh. He made fun of himself. He made fun of the situation. But most of all, he made people feel good. Soon, more people began to know his name. He was not just a struggling comedian anymore. He was becoming a star. After hosting at the Apollo, Steve started getting calls for more shows and bigger clubs. His face appeared on TV more often. He worked with other big comedians. People loved his clean, smart, and real sense of humor. Then, in the late 1990s, Something even bigger happened. Steve got his own television sitcom. It was called The Steve Harvey Show. It was about a high school music teacher who always found funny ways to solve problems. Steve played the main character. The show was a hit. It made people laugh, and it also taught lessons about respect, love, and believing in yourself. Kids, parents, and teachers loved it. Steve was now not only a comedian, he was also a role model. After years of struggle, sleeping in his car, and being told he couldn't do it, Steve had finally made it. He was on TV, just like he said he would be when he was a boy. He remembered the teacher who laughed at his dream. And he thought about the little boy who stuttered and cried because no one believed in him. Now, millions of people watched him every week. He had gone from homeless to famous. And this was only the beginning. After years of struggle, Steve Harvey finally got a big opportunity, his own TV show. In 1996, the first episode of The Steve Harvey Show was aired. This was not a comedy club or a game show, it was a sitcom, a type of television show that mixes comedy with real-life lessons. Steve played the role of Steve Hightower, a former R&B singer who now worked as a music teacher at a high school in Chicago. He had stopped singing to help kids and teach them about music and about life. Steve worked with his friend Cedric the Entertainer, who played his best friend and gym teacher. The two made a perfect team. They were funny, full of energy, and had great chemistry. Every week, they made people laugh while teaching important lessons. Many people loved the show. It was funny, clean, and positive. Kids could watch it with their parents. Teachers said they felt inspired by the characters. Steve became even more famous. The show ran for 6 seasons. That's about 6 years of hard work, jokes, and laughter. But Steve didn't stop there. He started writing books and hosting radio shows too. His life had changed completely, but he never forgot where he came from. He remembered the nights he had slept in his car. He remembered the people who told him he would never be on TV, and he smiled, knowing he had proved them wrong, not with anger, but with hard work and faith. Even as he became rich and famous, Steve Harvey stayed true to the values his parents taught him. He always talked about his faith in God. He believed that God had a plan for him and that his success was not luck, but a blessing. In interviews, Steve often said, "I'm not perfect, but I trust God. I believe in prayer. I know that without God, I would still be in my car, dreaming of the life I have now." Steve also cared deeply about his family. He had children from past relationships and later married his wife Marjorie. Together, they raised a blended family with love and care. Steve often gave advice to young men about being responsible, respectful, and hard-working. But Steve didn't just help his own family, he helped others too. He started the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, a program that helps young people, especially boys without fathers, learn life skills and grow with confidence. Steve would spend time with these boys and talk to them like a father or big brother. He told them, "You can be great. You are not alone. If I made it, you can too. He also gave money to families in need, helped students go to college, and supported community projects. Steve believed that success means nothing if you don't help others succeed. He once said, "The more you give, the more you get." Not just money, but love, joy, and peace. Steve Harvey is a strong and wise man, but he is also human. Like everyone, he has made mistakes. One of his biggest mistakes happened in 2015 during the Miss Universe pageant. Steve was the host of the show. His job was to entertain the audience and announce the winner at the end. Everything was going well until the final moment. He opened the envelope and said, "The winner is Miss Columbia." The crowd cheered. Miss Columbia cried tears of joy. She waved to the audience with the crown on her head. But then, something was wrong. Steve looked at the card again. His face changed. He looked shocked. He had made a mistake. The real winner was Miss Philippines. Steve walked back onto the stage. The music stopped. The room went quiet. "I have to apologize," Steve said. "There's been a mistake. Miss Universe 2015 is actually Miss Philippines. The crowd gasped. Miss Columbia was confused and sad. Miss Philippines was surprised. It was one of the most awkward moments on live television. People around the world laughed, shared jokes online, and made fun of Steve. But Steve did something many people would not do. He took full responsibility. He said, "I made the mistake. It was my fault. I read the wrong name. I'm sorry. He did not blame the producers. He did not hide. He faced the cameras and apologized again and again. That moment showed a different side of Steve, not the funny man, but the humble man. He taught people a lesson: when you make a mistake, own it, learn from it. Don't run away. In the years after, Steve continued hosting Miss Universe. He joked about his mistake and even made fun of himself. People respected him even more for being honest and brave. He turned his mistake into a comeback. Steve also continued growing as a host. He became the face of Family Feud, a popular game show where families compete to guess the most common answers to fun questions. His style was smart, quick, and hilarious. He made the show even more popular. Steve Harvey had become more than a comedian. He was more than a game show host, actor, or writer. He was now a legend, someone who inspired millions of people around the world. Even with all his success, Steve never forgot his purpose. He often said, "My gift is to make people laugh, but my purpose is to inspire." Steve used his platform to share wisdom and life lessons. On his talk shows and in interviews, people listened. They trusted his voice. He didn't speak like a celebrity. He spoke like a friend, a mentor, a father figure. Steve also wrote books that helped people understand life, relationships, and success. His most famous book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, became a bestseller and was later turned into a movie. He also wrote books about faith and success. In these books, Steve told readers that they are not too old to poor or too broken to win. He said, "Your dream has no expiration date. Keep going." He continued to work on TV, on the radio, and on stage. But more than anything, Steve wanted to help others. That's why he kept building schools, mentoring young men, and giving hope to people who had none. In interviews, Steve often talked about his past. The stuttering boy, the man living in a car, the comic who was laughed at. He didn't tell these stories to show off, he told them to give others strength. He wanted every person watching to believe, if Steve Harvey can do it, I can to A final message from Steve's story. Steve Harvey's life is not just a story of fame. It is a story of faith in something greater, hard work through pain, and failure. Kindness even when people are unkind, laughter in dark times. And giving back when you finally win. He once said, "God is in the blessing business. But you have to jump. You have to take the leap. You may fall, but one day, your parachute will open. Steve jumped. He fell. He got up again. And today, he is flying.